Your family can't wait around for your internet to catch up with your lifestyle. You need the mind-blowing speed you can only get with Revon broadband internet.
Mom? Mommy?
With speeds up to 70 megabits per second. Watch more, listen more, talk more, work more, and play more, all at the same time. Switch to Revon today and get 3 months free installation, and a chance to win a grand prize worth more than $5,000. Revon broadband internet. What are you waiting for? Join the revolution.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned in to MB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news. New information coming out of yesterday's double murder and shooting spree. The junior national security minister rejects the opposition leader's call for a nonpartisan approach to crime fighting. NIB on the hunt for a new director. Plus, the Pompey Square adding a fresh new look to downtown Nassau. We've got those stories and so much more coming up. I'm Paige McCartney, and MB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to MB12. The search continues for the remaining suspects in Monday's shooting spree, which left 2 males, including a teenage boy, dead. In the midst of all the action, police say some information provided to the media yesterday was incorrect. It turns out 3 other men were shot minutes after the double murder, not 4. Additionally, the triple shooting happened on Mount Pleasant Avenue off Kemp Road, not Montgomery Avenue. Monique Toot has the latest in this report.
Police have arrested 6 men and are searching for 3 more in connection with yesterday's double murder on Kemp Road. Assistant Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson says he expects some of those men to be charged this week. Police say the occupants of this white Dodge Ram truck went on a shooting spree shortly after 12 on Monday, murdering a 40-year-old man and 17-year-old boy outside this greenhouse on Kemp Road. Minutes later, the gunman then shot 3 men ages 56, 37, and 27 outside a business establishment on Mount Pleasant Avenue off Kemp Road. Those victims are said to be in serious condition. Police initially reported that only one suspect, an 18-year-old man, was shot during an exchange of gunfire between officers and the suspects. However, Ferguson says that number has changed.
2 suspects that we have in custody, we believe, had gunshot injuries. Both of them were treated and discharged, so they are with the police at the moment.
The assistant commissioner says not all of the men arrested were inside that truck, which police believe was stolen. However, authorities believe all of them are connected to those violent crimes.
Some of them were in the vehicle, and others, as a result of intelligence gathered from the area, who we have in custody.
A high-powered weapon and handgun have been recovered. Ferguson urged the 3 remaining suspects to turn themselves in.
There are persons out there who may have conflicts. I also say to those persons, you know who you are. We want you to come in and talk to us so we can resolve these issues.
Yesterday's incidents capped off a bloody holiday weekend, which also saw 2 men murdered in separate incidents on Saturday. The assistant commissioner says he's very concerned about the apparent disregard for human life.
We are always concerned when persons go about doing harm to other persons. I can say that we are very, very pleased with the progress we are making in connection with the double homicide yesterday afternoon.
These latest killings push the murder count for the year to 44. Reporting for MB12, I'm Monique Toot.
Well, in the wake of these latest killings and the continued level of violent crime, opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis says it's time parliamentarians put their political differences aside and work together toward finding a solution to stem crime once and for all. Minnis is calling on the government to implement another special committee on crime. He said if the government is indeed serious about launching a war against crime, it must realize that it cannot do it alone.
We feel and we recognize it's not political. I think this is the time. During war, you need strong leadership. This is a time now, and I will send the Prime Minister a letter. This is a time now for the Prime Minister to form an emergency national strategic non-partisan committee which would comprise of the opposition, church leaders, civic leaders, business leaders, Bahamians at large, to ensure that we fight this problem together.
This is not a new idea. Successive governments have created select committees and special commissions to get to the root of the menace. But with each new administration, those committees die off. But Minnis said those efforts were not futile. He said they just laid the groundwork for what can be now implemented with a new committee.
You would look at what the chairman of those crime commission, what they would report it, and this is the time you now must implement. So we know that when tough decisions are being made, it's not a political decision, it's a decision by the Bahamians at large.
Minnis also criticized the Progressive Liberal Party for making crime political leading up to the general election last year. He said the party that promised to reduce crime and blamed the Ingram administration for letting it get out of control is now in over its head with the issue. But Minister of State for National Security Keith Bell retorted that it's a good thing the PLP did win because things would be worse under the F&M.
Had the PLP government not became the government and reintroduced a number of strategies, I would submit to you that our homicide rate would have been much higher.
Bell added that he doesn't believe politics can be removed from an issue like crime.
I don't know how one could take politics out of the equation, precisely because it really is the politicians who determine what legal framework will be created to address crime and other social ills. It is certainly the politicians who determine what priorities of the government there certainly will be. Most certainly it's really the politicians who, and certainly the Prime Minister, who will determine where the resources, that is financial and otherwise, will go.
While the state minister agreed that now is a time for togetherness, he dismissed the suggestion of an emergency committee on crime.
I don't know if there really can be no new solutions. All have been considered, a number has been implemented, a number has been cancelled, a number has been resurrected. The fact is that we need the country, all of us, to do our part. Everybody has a role to play.
The murder count is now 44 for the year. Last year at this time, the murder count stood at 57. A severe weather warning was issued for Bimini, New Providence, and Andros at around 3 p.m. today, citing strong clusters of thunderstorms located over those islands that were moving very little. The thunderstorms are producing very strong gusty winds, dangerous lightning, water spouts, and possible tornadic activity. Observers reported water spouts in the Gladstone Road area near Coral Harbor. The Department of Meteorology warned residents to seek shelter and remain indoors, and boaters to seek safe harbor until the thunderstorms moved out of the area. The weather warning ended at 5 p.m. In other news tonight, last week, the National Insurance Board voted to fire former Director Algernon Cargill. Since then, an application for a judicial review has been filed in the Supreme Court, and the search has begun for a new director. Minister responsible for NIB, Shane Gibson, today updating reporters on that search so far and how the institution is faring in the wake of the change. Christina McNeil has that story.
It's been nearly 1 week since former National Insurance Board Director Algernon Cargill was fired, leaving the post of director vacant. However, it may still be a while before that post is filled as the search begins for a new director. Speaking to reporters outside Cabinet this morning, Minister of Labour and National Insurance Shane Gibson said the board will be seeking a candidate with skills that are closely aligned with the mandate of NIB. He says once candidates with those skills are identified, then the board will move on making a selection.
We have not interviewed anybody yet. I think a couple names are being tossed around, and we'll wait to see which names the board advance. We will also give them a couple names, and then we'll make a decision from there.
Just days after former Chairman Gregory Moss was fired from NIB back in January, Prime Minister Perry Christie named Anglican priest Father James Moultrie as the new chairman. It remains to be seen how long the search for a new director will run. The board of NIB voted last Wednesday to fire Cargill after government spent $861,606 on a forensic investigation into allegations against Cargill and Moss. That audit found that bonuses might have been improperly paid to Cargill and other executives, while also highlighting reported irregularities in the awarding of certain NIB contracts for various projects. Cargill was placed on administrative leave with benefits back in November, pending the outcome of that investigation. This is the second time the board voted to fire Cargill in the last 7 months. When asked today what the mood is at NIB, Gibson says he expects morale is at an all-time high.
But 80% of the employees voted for change in NIB. So you tell me how you think it is. Don't mind people talking nonsense about trying to pat their ego and elevate their ego, you know. The fact is, what happened, you know, you can't change that. They took the employees, not the government, the employees last year, June, took a no confidence vote, and I'm sure you would remember the results of that no confidence vote. So you could tell me, based on that, how you think the morale is at this time. Based on what I see, it's at an all-time high.
Despite Cargill's dismissal, this is not the end of controversy surrounding reported irregularities at NIB. Last week, Cargill filed an application for judicial review in the Supreme Court, seeking to have the findings of a forensic report into allegations of misconduct set aside. Cargill contends that the appointment of accounting firm Grant Thornton was not in compliance with the NIB Act because the appointment was not made by the board with prior resolution and the job did not go to tender. Today, Gibson told reporters he is not sure of how far the Attorney General's office is in responding to that application.
I have no idea. As you know, Mr. Cargill filed an action in the Supreme Court that we just recently, I think, I saw a copy for the first time yesterday, and I think our lawyers got it must have gotten it on Friday or over the weekend, where he's requesting a judicial review. And so in light of that, we need to seek legal advice as to whether or not it will be appropriate to continue to discuss that matter at this time.
Cargill has not taken any questions from the press in the wake of his dismissal. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, a new report completed by researchers in the Department of Environmental Health suggests there are at least 15 shanty towns on New Providence. However, that contradicts information revealed in a shanty town report completed back in 2011. According to the previous report conducted 2 years ago by the Bahamas National Geographic Information Systems Center, 38 shanty towns were identified on this island alone. The 2011 report also revealed that the number of structures in those villages increased from 722 in 2004 to 940 in 2010. Former Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Housing, Brenzel Roll, says about 7 of those villages were eventually demolished following fires and transformed into government subdivisions. Even so, he says there should still be far from 15.
I suspect there may be more, but I just had an opportunity to glance over the report. I'll look at it in depth to see exactly where they're focusing. I noticed they're only focused on shanty towns where predominantly Haitians live, but there are other shanty towns in New Providence. Some of which where the majority of the Haitians live.
Roll called the new Shantytown report conducted following a Haitian village fire off Faith Avenue in November a smokescreen.
The call for a new report, I believe, is just a deflection, and it reflects the unwillingness, I believe, of the existing government to deal with shanty towns. In the case of the Free National Movement, there's been a clear and definitive position on shanty towns. The government took the position that where shanty towns existed on government land, that those lands would be turned over to the Ministry of Housing and will be used for low and middle income housing.
Mackeyard was the most recent shanty town to be turned into a subdivision after it was ravaged by fire. However, work has ceased on that project. Housing Minister Ken Dorset has blamed current financial constraints and improper infrastructure for the delay. Roll says he understands it will cost government $1 million to repair unfinished homes that were vandalized in those subdivisions.